Okay, so I've got a lot to talk about in this video, and I want to make it clear that none of this is necessarily true. This is all coming from one person, and we have no way to back it up whatsoever. I just find it incredibly interesting. So here's some context. Mr. TLX5, big YouTuber, him and his ex-girlfriend have been going back and forth for about a month now about different allegations and such. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But his ex-girlfriend did just release a video a few hours ago, and within that video, she actually showed some screenshots of her talking to Mr. TLX5 about some stuff with Jason Blundell, JC Backfire, Deviation Games, Treyarch, and Black Ops 3 Zombies. And it's a lot of stuff that we never really have even heard about. There's been a lot of speculation, and if you don't know anything about what's going on with Jason Blundell as well, here's the story. Basically, Jason Blundell was the guy that was in charge of Zombies for Black Ops 3, and he was the studio head of Treyarch for all of Black Ops 4. Or he was until halfway through the year when he mysteriously left Treyarch, and no one to this day even really knows why. And then about 2 years later, it kind of turned out that he made a new studio called Deviation Games, and that some of the Treyarch developers went over there to go make a game with him, and then a couple years after that, it turns out that the game was actually being cancelled by Sony, and that Deviation Games was subsequently shut down. For some additional context as well, JC Backfire is another Zombies YouTuber, and he was actually someone who was hired by Deviation Games to do marketing for them, or PR, or something like that. I don't think he was actually a game developer at that point, but he did have some role within the studio. So with JC Backfire and Mr. TLX5 being friends for years, and them having some sort of relationship with Jason Blundell while he was at Treyarch, because Jason Blundell did interact with Zombies YouTubers, they were people that did have some level of, I don't want to call it friendship, but they at least knew each other a little bit. So now I'm going to read you what was sent by Mr. TLX5 to his now ex-girlfriend. JC also left the group chat because he said I was being too negative about games. It's also funny because Blundell told me he left Deviation Games, and he told me multiple times that whatever they're going to make is going to flop LMAO. So I went to bed just thinking what my life should be. Blundell wanted me to work at this place called Company 3, but like they make movie trailers and it's a lot of work and the pay is so mid. It would also lock me in Los Angeles, and he told me that I don't even have 5 more years on YouTube if I stick with Zombies because I agree. Blundell officially confirmed he fucked Call of Duty for me. He pulled out all the quality devs that now work at Deviation Games, and now he works for Sony making a title for the PS6. So he gets a golden ticket out while I'm stuck suffering trying to figure out what to do with my life. He made a ton of money off the Gobblegum in BO3, but like there's no route like that for me in video editing. You can't just make microtransactions that blow up, which is why I wanted Edited to do so well, but now I bring up Edited to tell people and they blah blah blah, it keeps going on. So there's kind of a lot to tackle in this whole thing. To go a little bit further into what Deviation Games was, Jason Blundell co-founded that studio a couple of years ago and was given over, I think it's $50 million by Sony to create a AAA shooter IP thing. Then we've got Lex saying in this message that Jason Blundell knew that this game was somehow going to flop before it had even really gotten into a full-on production stage, because there's been a few leaks about what this game was going to be from Deviation Games over the years, and it didn't even really seem like it got very far into production. And honestly, this brings up a lot of red flags for me, because why would Jason Blundell be telling Mr. TLXify about his $50+ million game and that it's going to be a flop? Why would he ever admit that to anybody, let alone some random fucking YouTuber? Because at the end of the day, Mr. TLXify could have turned around and made that public information, and all of a sudden this could have blown up in Jason Blundell's face and he could have been fired by Sony. Why would he trust that to a person that he doesn't even really know all that well? Then there's this information about Blundell telling him to go work at this place called Company 3. I don't know, that probably could have happened, and that might have just been a recommendation of Blundell being like, oh, this is the first company off the top of my head while they were having a conversation, and Lex took that to heart a little bit too much. Then for me, the most interesting part of this is that apparently Jason Blundell also told Mr. TLXify that he doesn't even have 5 more years on YouTube if he sticks with Zombies. First of all, doing Zombies on YouTube has never been a very good job, to be quite honest with you. It was profitable for like 1 or 2 years, but outside that, it's never been a good financial investment. So this could have just been Jason Blundell being like, hey man, maybe you should try to find some stuff outside YouTube, or use your influence now to try to find a real job that isn't just making videos, because even if it wasn't Zombies, could have been Minecraft, could have been GTA, whatever it is, it's just general advice. But for whatever reason, it seems like Lex took this casual conversation that he had with Jason as, oh yeah, Jason fucked Zombies for me because he left the studio and that I should leave Zombies or else I'm not gonna have a job in 5 years. And I don't know, is it just me, or am I getting from this message the vibe that Jason Blundell has a huge fucking ego? I don't know why. Maybe this could just be the way that Lex worded all of this, but it just seems like Jason felt so egotistical because he took all the quality game developers that now work at Deviation Games from Treyarch. When in all reality, from what I know, at least publicly, there was like 3 people that left, and one of them was Tony Flame, who had worked at Treyarch for a long time. Sure, probably good game developer, but all of them? Treyarch's a studio with like over 1,000 employees at the very least. I don't think it took that many of them. Plus, if they were such quality game developers, then why is Deviation Games shut down now? Why are all these game developers either out of a job or they're working on a completely different project because you failed? Aside from all of that, it does give us some interesting updates that apparently Jason Blundell is now working on a title for the PS6, which, okay, sure, whatever you say. Then there's some self-deprecation of he got a golden ticket, as in Jason Blundell got this golden ticket out while Lexus sat here suffering with the zombies community. Like, boo-hoo, Jason Blundell actually put in work in his life. Bro, I worked up all the way from, I think he was a general game designer at some point. He was pretty low on the totem pole at Treyarch and then moved all his way up to the director of the studio. Like, that's a big deal. He moved all the way up that chain. Whether or not I agree with any of the shit Jason Blundell's done over the years, whether I even like the guy, that is still impressive to do, and that's a lot of work. But why is bro sitting here acting like a victim? Like, what the hell? The second most interesting part of this is that he seems to imply that Jason Blundell told him that he made a ton of money off of Gobblegums in BO3. I'm not sure. You guys are gonna have to tell me as well if this is how you read this whole thing, but it seemed to be implied that Jason Blundell somehow made money personally from Gobblegums in Black Ops 3, which I'm really not sure if I believe, to be quite honest with you, because Jason Blundell, sure, he was very high up at Treyarch at that point. He wasn't at the very top spot of the studio, but he's still fairly high up. But for a company as greedy as Activision to agree to give him a percentage of microtransactions, but only for Gobblegums within Black Ops 3, doesn't even really make any sense, especially because you purchase them with Call of Duty points. Would they just have to keep track of how much was spent on Liquid Divinium from those COD points and then give him like some percentage of that? That just makes no sense to me. It could possibly be that Jason Blundell was bragging about how much money Gobblegums did make for Treyarch. I don't know, this could really just be taken in any sort of way. Then there's also a second message a couple minutes later in Lex's ex-girlfriend's video, and I'm gonna skip through the first half of it to get to the Jason Blundell stuff. Ever since Blundell told him and I the truth about what's going to happen, he's more self-conscious of working at Deviation since Blundell thinks his own company he started is going to flop. So I'm just like, bruh, I don't care, to be honest. I just care about where it'll take my career, and if he's saying I should go into corporate now, then why would I wait for your caca game to release, you know? So again, I'm just gonna tell you guys, I think it's complete bullshit that Jason Blundell ever even insinuated to these 2 random people that, sure, one of them did work for him, but not in a very high position, but to these 2 people that honestly don't even make a difference to his life. Why would he tell them that his game is going to fail? That makes 0 sense whatsoever, and I don't even know where he thought this was coming from. Like, what sort of train of mind do you have to come through a conversation to say, man, this guy who's a game developer just gave me this great inside intel into this fucking company? I don't know, man. Both of these messages really came across to me as just really self-important. Like, yeah, I got all this crazy info from Jason Blundell. I care about where it's going to take my career. He screwed me over. I'm not getting money from Gobblegums because I can't monetize my website the same way that he monetized Gobblegums. Like, it just seems really self-important. Now, keep in mind, some of this could be true. In these messages, there's always going to be a grain of salt. I do think that some of the stuff about Jason Blundell is true, where he's saying, like, hey, he's working on a game for the PS5, or that, you know, maybe JC kind of admitted that he was a little bit self-conscious about working at Deviation Games because he knew that the game wasn't ever going to release. There's always going to be a sliver of truth, but at the same time, it's like, bro, there is so much here that is just honestly, it doesn't even seem like it could be true. And I just want to reiterate, Lex did not post this himself. This wasn't him trying to deflect from the allegations that have been going on against him. This was sort of hidden about an hour into his ex-girlfriend's video, so this wasn't even related to that. This is just something that he sent her at some point. But just back to those messages, that whole thing kind of gave me whiplash because it takes you in so many different directions, and honestly, it kind of sucks because this is probably the best intel that we've had about Jason Blundell since he left Treyarch back in like 2019. He's a very secretive person. He has no social media. He doesn't even have a LinkedIn profile. No one really ever knows what Jason Blundell's actually up to. So for us to just find out sort of what's been going on with him through this random DM in a video that most of you guys probably haven't even watched and are not going to watch. The whole thing's honestly just kind of crazy, and it does at least give us a little bit of insight as to why Lex, I think in the past from what people were saying to me on Twitter, has been kind of hating on Jason Blundell for a few years now. Because personally, I don't keep track of Lex, he's never been my thing even before any of this ever happened. I was just never the biggest fan of his content, so I didn't keep up, but from what I knew of him, I thought he was a Jason Blundell dick and ball enthusiast, but you know, this kind of shows that maybe he isn't actually a fan of Blundell. I don't really know. This whole thing is super confusing. I'm gonna stop rambling though. You guys tell me in the comments, and while you're down there, leave a like, and you know, just what do you think about this? I am so confused, but anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Love you. Bye.